We're up to 2002. And in 2002, the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Ottawa Senators met again. Now, in 2000, the Ottawa Senators lost to Toronto 4-2. Curtis Joseph versus Tom Barrasso in his stint in Ottawa. 2001, Toronto swept the Ottawa Senators. Was Curtis Joseph versus Patrick Lalime. Now, after this, before we went into lockout mode in 2004 and lost the 04-05 season, Belfour won a battle with Lalime in 7. And Toronto beat Ottawa there. In between, you have 2002. So it's kind of funny when I see people saying, all right, I don't like this. The same teams meet each other all the time. This is back when it was 1 versus 8. And you had Toronto and Ottawa meet 4 years out of 5. So yeah, the 1 versus 8 system, yeah, that's great. We don't want to see the same teams all the time. You still get to see some of the same teams a lot. And for Ottawa, this was the year that I thought they were going to win it. So this is why I picked this series, because I really felt like this was the year it was finally going to happen for Ottawa. Keep in mind, I'm cheering for Ottawa really kind of loud in this series, because I want Ottawa to finally beat Toronto. They'd lost in 2000, they'd lost in 2001. Now, Toronto was the better team during the regular season, 43-25-10-4, as opposed to Ottawa's 39-27-9-7. Goals for, 249 for Toronto, which was third, 243 for Ottawa, which was fifth. Goals against, 207 for Toronto and 208 for Ottawa. So very close to one another, very similar records, but Toronto does have home ice for Game 7. But the first thing Ottawa does in this series is say home ice, not a big deal. First period, it's Havlat, power play goal from Bonk and Hossa at 7:44. Bonk then scores on the power play from Alfredson and Havlat at 9:04. And then Shane Knighty scores from Marian Hossa at 11:44. And then makes it 3-0 for Ottawa after the first period in Game 1. And right out of the gate, I'm thinking, this is going to be Ottawa's year. It's going to be different. Second period, Todd White scores from Benoit Brunet and Daniel Alfredson at 1:42. And then Alfredson scores on the power play from Redden and Havlat at 10:39. This is pre-Ottawa having to make a decision between Havlat and Redden and Chara, where they would choose Redden. And makes sense when you look at this series that they would choose Redden. It just makes sense. No scoring in the third period. Ottawa wins 5-0. Patrick Lalime, 27 save shutout. Joseph saves 28 out of 33. Cujo didn't look great. Lalime looked fantastic. His Marvin the Martian mask, one of the all-time greats. And Ottawa's up 1-0 in this series. Game 2. Travis Green opens the scoring from Pilar and Domi at 4:46. So Ty Domi on the board. Then it's Darcy Tucker from Alex McGillney at 8:20. Yes, by this point, Alex McGillney is now with the Toronto Maple Leafs. When I was doing the 2000 series, McGillney was in New Jersey. Now he's in Toronto. Second period, Sammy Salo scores from Todd White at 7:52 to make it 2-1. And then Mike Fisher scores the tying goal from Lecision and Arvidsson at 2:49. And honestly, I thought, okay, they tied it up. They were down 2-0. They can get the win here. We go to overtime. Nothing settled in first overtime. We go to second overtime. Nothing settled in second overtime. The longer an overtime goes, the more I'm convinced the team I'm watching is about to lose overtime. That's just a rule. That's just a rule from being a fan of the teams I'm a fan of. And when I look over their histories in the playoffs, it somewhat checks out, although Vancouver in 94, they had some pretty good results in overtimes there. Third overtime, it's Gary Roberts from Robert Reichel at 4 minutes and 30 seconds. And Gary Roberts had an amazing series. One of the reasons why, when I talked about Gary Roberts in a video a couple weeks ago, I said this guy, Hall of Fame. I think he should be there. In terms of goaltending, Lalime saved 39 out of 42 in the loss. Curtis Joseph saves 54 out of 56. Both goaltenders played pretty well in this series, but again, this is one of those series that told me, you know what, Cujo's a big game goaltender. He just is. Game 3 in Ottawa. Ottawa assert themselves at home. First period, no scoring. Second period, it's Arvidsson scoring from Fisher and Havlat at 6:49. Second period, it's then Arvidsson scoring again from Havlat at 10:14. Alfredson would score to make it 3-0 from Brunet. Benoit Brunet at 16:25. So it's 3-0, third period, 3.5 minutes left. But Toronto doesn't go away. First, it's Gary Roberts from Hoagland and McCabe at 16:44, so that's 19 seconds after it was 3-0. And then Travis Green in the last minute scores from Corson and McGillney at 19:26. So, not as certain as it might have looked there. But Cujo ends up taking the loss, 26 saves on 29 shots. Lalim saves 26 out of 28. No harm, no foul. We go to Game 4, again in Ottawa. Ottawa now up 2-1, and they had a chance to go up 3-1, and they didn't. Now, no scoring in the first. Second period, it's Redden on the power play from Hossa and Bonk at 2:15. Radic Bonk's such a fun name to say, isn't it? Macaulay then scores from Roberts and Pilar at 6:17, and then on the power play, it's Macaulay. So Macaulay had a pretty solid series as well from Roberts and Hoagland at 17:17. Third period, no scoring. Ottawa doesn't tie it. Cujo saves 24 out of 25 on the road for the win. Lalim saves 22 out of 24 in the loss. So we go to Game 5. It's in Toronto, and Ottawa does something that throughout their series against Toronto had been difficult. Get a series lead. Get a lead on them. Just get a lead. Don't get psyched out again. One joke that I had going in and around this time for Ottawa was how it just seemed like Toronto would psych them out. And it would just go away. Their confidence, their skill, all of it would just dissolve. You could watch it during these series. But it didn't happen in Game 5. Wade Redden scores from Chara and Ylonen at 7:22. Yes, Ylonen, who had a pretty decent run from here. Power play goal by Ron Francis from Macaulay and Hoagland at 19:42 ties it. But in the second period, it's a power play goal for Ottawa. Marian Hossa with the goal from Bonk and Redden at 7:13. It's 2-1 Ottawa after 2. Third period, Macaulay ties it from Roberts and Bill Berg at 12:34. But Alfredson would score from Ylonen and Salo to restore the lead, and then it's an empty netter by Radic Bonk from Sean McEachern and Jody Hull at 19:25. So, Lalim saves 26 out of 28 in the victory, and Joseph 17 saves on 20 shots. Lalim, very good in games 3, 4, and 5. Really coming into his own, and I thought, good. You know, I've been a Lalim fan for a while. I'm glad to see him getting some success. Now they can beat Toronto and move on to next round and play. Turned out to be Carolina that year. Didn't happen. Game 6 in Ottawa. All Ottawa needs to do is win at home. First period, it's Hossa from Ylonen and McEachern at 1:05. Then it's Alfredson from Ylonen at 4:39. It's 2-0 Ottawa early. And I remember being kind of sort of cocky at that point, like, yes, finally Ottawa's going to knock off Toronto. It's been 2 years in a row of Toronto knocking them out. This year it's finally going to happen. I got ahead of myself. Power play goal by McCabe from Roberts and Macaulay at 13:01. And then another power play goal. It's Gary Roberts from Hoagland and Macaulay at 17:20. And it's 2-2. It's right about where they were. I'm like, oh, not again. Second period, Robert scores from Green and McCabe at 13:09. But Todd White would score to tie it from Alfredson and Nighty at 19:35. It's 3-3, third period. All you got to do is win the third period. This is why, home ice is important, and they blew it. McGillney would score from Travis Green at 4:28. Travis Green had a pretty good series. Got to throw in there. Travis Green, now coach of the Canucks, was a Maple Leaf back then. The Maple Leafs hold on. They win it 4-3. Curtis Joseph, 20 saves on 23 shots. Lalim saved 15 out of 19. So this is the thing. Lalim's numbers not great coming out of that one. And, of course, that's after 3, 4, and 5 where he's pretty good. But you're remembered as a goaltender for your last game, for the most part. Game 7 in Toronto. And I will say this about the Toronto Maple Leafs. This was a team that was skilled, and they knew how to come up in big games. They did. I know they never went to the Stanley Cup final. I understand all of that. But this was a really good team. First period, no scoring. Second period is a power play goal. It is Alex McGillney from Corson and Dempsey. So Nathan Dempsey on the board. 11:49. Third period, they're ahead. And they salted away. It's McGillney from Caberlet and Green at 5:14. And then McCabe scores from Roberts and Macaulay at 14:04. Gary Roberts caps off a really good series with a helper on the insurance goal to make it 3-0. Lalim saves 24 out of 27. Curtis Joseph only faced 19 shots. It's a Game 7 in Toronto. They only managed 19 shots. It was a combination of Toronto's defense being really good, and Ottawa just had this. It was this mental block when it came to the Toronto Maple Leafs. And it's interesting because now we look at the Toronto Maple Leafs and go, they can't beat Boston. Look at that problem they have with Boston. Yeah, Ottawa had that problem with Toronto. So when I see Ottawa, do well against Toronto in the regular season, and Ottawa fans are like, haha, see, we beat you and we're not even any good. And look at that, you can't even beat us. And all I can think is the shoe was on the other foot back in the early 2000s, where for whatever reason, Toronto Maple Leafs had no problem with the Ottawa Senators in the big games. In the elimination games, that's where Toronto came up big. So I wanted to talk about this because honestly, this was the most fascinating thing. And this is, of all of the classic series and classic games they've been showing on Sportsnet, this is one that interests me the most. Because again, I'm watching it and I'm like, Ottawa had all of the pieces you need to win. They just couldn't figure it out. And in the end, that's what did him in. Alfredson had 4 goals and 3 assists in this series. Bonk had 2 goals, 3 assists. Hossa had 2 goals, 3 assists. And Havlat had a goal and 4 helpers. This was a very talented team up front. Lalime was 3-4 with a .918 save percentage. He did play well. Gary Roberts, 5 goals, 5 assists, 10 points in that series. McCauley, 3 goals, 4 assists. McGillney, 3 goals, 2 assists. And Travis Green had 2 goals and 3 assists in 7 games. Pretty good for Travis Green there. And Curtis Joseph was 4-3 with a .917 save percentage. So very even goaltending all around. But again, Game 7, Cujo gets that shutout. And it continues his legendary ranks among Toronto goaltenders. Or the speculation we had at work at the time was that Ottawa just had mental block with Cujo. It just felt like there was some kind of thing that some kind of a voodoo curse or something that was on the Ottawa Senators at the time, and they just couldn't get over the hump against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Very interesting series, and it was a lot of fun to watch. Even as an Ottawa fan, it was a fun series. Just Ottawa could not get over the top. 5 years after this series, they do get to the Stanley Cup Finals, but they didn't have to play Toronto to get there. So that's part of the narrative. I know Toronto wasn't in the playoffs. But again, they did have an issue with Toronto. So hopefully someday we see these teams play each other in the playoffs again. This is very, very fascinating. And I would be very surprised if Ottawa didn't somehow find a way to lose it again. But, that's the thing. That's the wonderful thing about series. And once I'm done with this whole series part, I plan to do a rivalries look as well. Where I can go through rivalries, and I'm thinking about splitting it up by decades. So not like the entire run. Like I could do a Montreal-Boston one that'd be like a 50-minute video. And just every single series on the board. But I don't think I'm going to do madness with it. But we'll see, right? Thank you guys so much for all your support. As always, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, remember, stay home if you can. Stay as safe as possible out there. Keep your sanity, people. I'm keeping mine. I don't know why people think I'm not. Oh, that. Yeah, no, that was just... Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for all your support. And I will talk to you again soon.